Welcome to the first episode of Book Nerd Paradise. I'm LRW Lee, author of the Andy Smithson Fantasy Adventure Series. Today, we welcome YA fantasy author Brian Rathbone as our guest. Brian has published 9 books in his World of Godsland Fantasy series and has recently launched a host of books for younger readers that include dragons as well as characters from that series. Welcome, Brian.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
To help our listeners get to know you a little bit, you've selected one of your favorite quotes. What is it and why is it your favorite?
So I put quotes at the beginning of each of my chapters to kind of set the feel and to give the readers a little bit more perspective into my world. This quote is one of those from the beginning of a chapter called The Herald, and the quote itself is, "Stars are the souls of old sailors. They plot the skies and guide the wayward home. Orestes, captain of the Landfinder." And it's just kind of struck me, that's been one of the more popular quotes in the book, and I just like the idea of sailors who have passed on guiding those who are still with us. It just kind of struck me as one of the more poignant quotes.
Yeah, agree. No, that's great. Brian will be reading from his first book in the Godsland series, Call of the Herald, which enjoys over 2,600 reviews. So it's certainly not unread.
Excellent. Well, rather than start from the beginning, I thought I would jump right into the middle. This is a scene where Katrin Volker and her friends are trying to find safety. Chase and Benjen stack the stones they removed to the side of the entrance, trying to keep them from falling, but a few still tumbled down the slope and crashed through the trees. The shadows were long by the time they cleared an opening large enough for Benjen to squeeze himself through and take a look. "This place looks about the same as when I last saw it. Let's finish getting this opening cleared," he said. From inside the entrance, he was able to dislodge large sections of rock. They took 2 ropes and tied them to a remaining boulder and tied small stones to the other ends. Chase and Benjen tossed down the ropes, and although the stones helped propel them through the foliage, only one reached the ground. The other caught high in the branches. Chase pulled it back up and tossed it again. This time, the rope got low enough for Strom to reach it. "Secure the packs one at a time, and we'll haul them up," Benjen said. "Gather wood and kindling, preferably dry," Benjen called down after they began pulling the packs up. "Tie it off in bundles, and we'll haul them up." Katrin and Osborne scrambled to find wood in the failing light while Strom tied the bundles and guided them as they rose. Benjen's request for wood meant they would have a fire, which was reassuring because it meant they felt they were safely away from any pursuers. When darkness threatened to make scrounging impossible, they made the climb while they still could see. A relatively easy task when unencumbered. No one spoke as they passed through the entrance and stared at the sight before them. The narrow opening emptied into a spacious hallway, which sloped downward at an angle. Perfectly rectangular, the hall was clearly not a natural formation, which was further evidenced by the worn scrollwork that decorated the lichen-covered walls. A short distance ahead, the hall gave way to a cavernous chamber. Its floor was littered with debris and the bones of small animals, and despite its relatively smooth appearance, it was pocked with small holes. A narrow opening in the ceiling let in moonlight, which was reflected by the still waters of a subterranean lake. As they crossed the area that stood between them and the lake, the massive size of the cavern became apparent, and the scale of it dwarfed them. The vaulted ceiling was almost invisible in the growing darkness, and the dark waters of the lake seemed to stretch on forever in the distance. "What is this place?" Katrin asked. Benjen stood up from the bags he had been unpacking and joined the others. "Your father and I found this place by accident when looking for shelter from a storm. We couldn't figure out much about it other than the fact that this chamber had once been inhabited, possibly before the Purge. Other passages once led into this chamber, but they had all been blocked or the ceilings had collapsed. We investigated a bit, even built a small raft we used to explore. I bet it's still here." His eyes took on a faraway look as he remembered a time long past, but he pulled himself from his memories and returned to the present. "Let's get a fire started, shall we? I'm hungry. I'd really like some hot food. We can explore later." Katrin got the tinderbox from her pack and started a fire. "Don't make the fire very large, little miss," Benjen warned. "We haven't put anything across the entrance yet, and the light could give us away. The cavern's big enough that it'll take up the smoke before it escapes through that hole up there, but we'll still need to be careful. The lake water should be safe to drink," he continued, "but I think it's best to boil it first. There's a kettle in one of the bags. After the water is boiled, you can put the kettle in the shallow part of the water to cool it quickly. Let's fill our flasks, too." Katrin and Strom set about boiling water and getting ingredients together for a stew. She was glad to see Benjen pull recurved bows, strings, and several quivers of arrows from one of the long bags, along with a couple of short fishing poles. Long before the stew was really done, they decided it had cooked long enough and fell to it. Full stomachs made them sleepy, and they were soon curling in their bedding, letting Benjen take the first watch.
Ah, very good. The question becomes, what happens next, huh? Yes, when I...
Indeed. What does happen next? And what is in that cavern?
Gee, could be good stuff. It could be really scary stuff, huh? Okay.
Could be both. You never can tell. You'll have to read the book to find out.
Yes, indeed. How convenient. Yes.
It's like I planned it that way.
Gee, you think, baby? I know how much you all love trivia, especially when it relates to book trivia. Well, Brian has a really good trivia question for you today. What is it, Brian?
So my trivia question to readers out there is, what natural phenomenon did Katrin use to prove her identity to the tribes of Argast?
Good question. Yes, I guess we'll have to wait until next episode to find out, huh? Oh!
We're going to leave them hanging. Well, that'll give them time to read the book.
Our sponsor for this episode of Book Nerd Paradise is fantasy author M.R. Mathias, who published the 6th book in his Dragoneers saga, Blood and Royalty, in December. The Royal Dragoneers, the first installment of the Dragoneers saga, was deemed one of the top indie fantasy releases of 2010 by Fantasy Book Critic, and was listed in the first ever Publishers Weekly Indie Select issue in December 2010. It was also nominated for the Locust Poll in 2011. After struggling for more than 2 centuries to tame the inhospitable islands where they washed up, the descendants of the survivors of a lost passenger ship are now striving to tame a more substantial mainland they have found, despite the actions of their sworn enemies, the dragons. Against this background, 16-year-old Jenka wants nothing more than to follow in his father's footsteps and become a king's ranger. But when he finds himself surrounded by vicious enemies, a young pureblood dragon comes to his rescue and they become bondmates. Meanwhile, the goblins have a new king, Grabblebone, and have allied themselves with the tainted mudge dragons to drive mankind out of its land. Setting his sights on a vast man-made wall, Grabblebone and his wicked hell-born nightshade seek to poison the entire human kingdom and enslave any survivors. Jenka and his companions, a Druidia warrior named Za, soon realize that they and their bonded dragons are mankind's only hope for survival. Forced to defy their arrogant king's wishes, the pair set out on a desperate quest to stop Grabblebone's forces and save mankind from its terrifying fate. With actions so intense you'll forget to breathe and intrigue around every corner, The Royal Dragoneers is one adventure you cannot miss. The ebook is available on Amazon for just 99 cents, and its professionally recorded audiobook is just $1.99. I know you all love book giveaways. Well, Brian has graciously offered to give away some of his books. So, Brian, what are you giving away?
Well, the World of Godsland Fantasy Series currently has 9 books. The first trilogy is the Dawning of Power trilogy, and I'm going to be giving away an ebook copy and an audiobook copy of the Dawning of Power trilogy.
Oh, that's awesome, Brian. The first 3 books of 9. That's great. Well, tell you what, I'm going to up the ante a little. So we're going to do 3 giveaways. I'm going to offer a free audiobook of the prequel to the Andy Smithson series, Power of the Air's Passion. It's a hilarious take on the afterlife where soul music plays, and there's an unclaimed baggage office and an unfinished business office and a whole lot more. You're gonna laugh. So, how to enter to win simply leave a comment about this episode in the field below. Please leave constructive and meaningful comments. Only the first comment left will qualify. You'll want to subscribe to this channel because on the next episode, we'll count up the number of comments, put that number of papers in a hat, and draw 3 at random. So the comments corresponding to the number drawn will be the lucky winners. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on to see if you've won. I hope you've enjoyed getting to know Brian Rathbone a little bit. Links to his books will be in the notes below, so please make sure you follow those. So Brian, any follow-up comments that you'd like to leave with our guests?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for having me on the show. It is an honor to be the first guest on Book Nerd Paradise. And for everybody out there, if you'd like to come and interact with me, I'm very active on Twitter. I'm at Brian Rathbone on Twitter, where I tell a lot of bad dragon jokes. Since we were talking about baggage in the afterlife, I also run Dragon Airways, and our motto is, you didn't need all that baggage anyway. So be sure to come out and follow me on Twitter, at Brian Rathbone, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I'll look forward to coming back sometime, I hope.
Absolutely, Brian. So thank you so much for agreeing to join us for this inaugural episode of Book Nerd Paradise, and hopefully our fans will just continue to grow based upon their first impressions. I'm LRW Lee, author of the Andy Smithson Epic Fantasy Series. The ebook of Book One in the series, Blast the Dragon's Fury, is available for free, so be sure to follow the link below to download your copy. And please post a review online once you've read it. I would also count it an honor if you'd follow me on Twitter and friend me on Facebook. Our guest for the next episode will be fantasy author M.R. Mathias, so be sure to tune in for that. Thanks so much for watching.